Today on the Tim Marner podcast show, I've got our Lisa Adams. What is your business name? Sacred Soul Home.
Homebody Healing.
Wonder why she's put Sacred Soul on the board. Homebody
Yeah,
Healing.
she's put Sacred Success because that'll come from Instagram. So my business is called Homebody Healing.
Yeah.
And that comes from me believing that your body is your home, so you must always return there. And Sacred Success Guide is what it says on Instagram that I am. You know, when you're thinking, well, what can I be within that?
Right.
You know, I don't want to be, I'm not a coach. I'm not, I have been a mentor, but mentor's a bit harsh. So from all of my offerings, it's that sacred, it's me guiding you back home to your body, to yourself, in sacred spaces for your success in your life and your business.
When did you first start it? When did you get the... Well, you've always been a witch. We know that. But when did you first
that's a
get
compliment.
Definite compliment. When did you first start out the journey? When did you get the actual...
Like calling.
Yeah.
And did I hear the call? Gosh, so that's... that probably goes way back, really, because my past is... I was a registered nurse for 30 years, and within that I was a lecturer in health and social care. And then I went back into nursing. But I always just knew that wasn't really for me. I loved it because I loved that nurturing and looking after people and helping people. But I just knew, and it was as if there was a light bulb. There was something here. I always felt there was something here that was like this. But it just hadn't happened. But I didn't know what it was. But I always was interested in things that were probably, back then, what you'd say was a little bit different. You know, like your crystals and incense and just things that were not mainstream, you know, quite a long time ago. So I've always, and I never could get my head around the whole concept of that we leave school, go to university, we get a job, and then that's where we stay. And we just go to work and come home and do the same thing again. And it's a 9-to-5 thing. And like everyone's fallen for it. Everyone gets up in the morning and goes to work at the same time and sits in traffic for an hour, going and coming back, while the soul is slowly dying. And it's even called rush hour. That stresses you out before you get where you're going. So that whole concept of how we work and live just never really felt right to me. And there was always this thing that was there. I don't even know a word for it. It was just something that was there. And then after 30 years of doing both, the lecturing and the nursing, I woke up one morning and just thought, I'm just not doing this anymore. I'm just not playing anymore. So I thought, I do not want to do another thing that does not make my heart sing. So by lunchtime, I'd given him a notice, and 4 weeks later, I left my job, and I had nothing to go to. I had no savings, nothing to go to.
What was the moment, Lise? What was that calling? What was the edge of your bed moment?
Well, I was in bed, actually. I was in bed and the alarm clock went off, and alarm clocks they're just wrong on many levels, aren't they? Again, what are they? Yeah. It's a noise that disrupts you from a state of being that's healing, you know, that's connected to like other realms. And you've got this noise that goes off and you're like, oh. So alarm clocks are just not something that they're just wrong. But in the job I was in, I was doing it was like 8 till 4. So the alarm clock did go off that day, and I noticed that I got into a thing of when the alarm clock went off, I'd get up and the first thing I'd do was, because I was like, another day. I'm doing the same thing, another day. But this morning I didn't get up, and I lay there and I actually counted all the days that I'd been alive. It was in March and my birthday was the end of March. And I counted all the days I've been alive, which took a while because I'm shit at maths. And I could kind of see pictures of like my family and holidays and happy times and just my life, really. You know, in a nice way as it was there. And I just thought, I don't want to spend another day doing anything that doesn't have that, that's not all about that. So, because it's all too short. So that's why that morning, then when I did jump up, I thought, that's it, I'd made the decision already that I'm not doing it anymore. So I gave my notice in. And I'd been in the job about 6 months, so I was really, I'd got in the flow of it. So, and it was a new role. So I did say to my boss, I've got something to say which you probably won't like, but she was absolutely fine. She said, you know what, if I was younger, I'd do the same thing myself. So, and the other thing is that sometimes we wait, don't we? We wait until the time's right. We wait until we've got the money in the bank. We wait till we've got something else to go to. But then we're closing that opportunity. We're closing that space. So if we create the space first, something's got to land in it. So why not have the things that you actually want to call in, the things that you want to do? So that's what happened.
Did you know what was coming? Or you just
No.
Just a knowing, a trust?
Yeah, well, I'd already trained as a yoga teacher by then, because I was practicing yoga myself. And then I'd organised, maybe a year before, a wellbeing day, a women's wellbeing day with another couple of women. And the yoga teacher let us down the day before. So I was frantically trying to find another yoga teacher. And then I just thought, well, if I do it, I don't have to rely on anybody else. So from then, I started my yoga teacher training. So I'd already done that. This was probably a year before. And I just knew, I felt this primordial call to be in service to women. I'd started holding women's circles in Bolton, which initially was once a month, but women were, again, that call was being heard. Women were, I remember thinking, fucking hell, they're coming out of the woodwork, these women, for this. But when I started doing them a few years ago, there wasn't actually anything, there wasn't a lot like that. Yeah. So again, people were a bit wary of, well, what is it? Is it a bit witchy? Is it a bit woo-woo? What do we do there? So I'd already started doing that. So I knew that I had this calling to be in service to women, and I needed to follow that and explore it on a deeper level.
How do you do that?
So I do that now with my business.
But how do you do that? How do you sort of develop that side of you? How do you...
It's not even, that's the thing, it's not even that we have to develop it. We were saying before about being, in your logic mind, and in business, yeah, you'd sit down like you would do with people. Yeah. You'd sit down and plan and say, right, and there has to be a certain amount of strategy, but then a lot of it is soul-led as well, isn't it? And I just knew that this was my purpose, and being a nurse, and helping people, looking after people and helping them to heal in their own way, was all part of that. And being a lecturer and sharing my knowledge with others, which is part of what I do now, because they say knowledge is power, which it is, but only, when you use it and you share it. There's no point in me, knowing things that I know and then not sharing it with other people. So it was that knowing. And it wasn't something that I purposely had to decide to develop. It was that soul calling. So my soul just knew. And it was probably birthed as well through spending more time doing yoga. So more time of, journeying within, yeah, and listening to that call, because, it's that whispers, isn't it? In that silence, you can listen to the whispers and you're calling. So that would have guided me there, but it wasn't a conscious decision to develop it. And again, it's just that throwing it open to be guided. It's having that, since that day, I've had absolute blind faith in the, whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, the divine energy. I've had absolute 100% blind faith that I am being guided and I'm on the right path. So things will unfold as and when they're meant to. So, and that's what's happened.
Tell me the things that unfolded then, as you left there, you did a month work, and then what did you do straight away? Put yoga sort of events, retreats on. How's it sort of gone from there?
Gosh, it seems like so long ago now. I think it was... because it was just, so it was the year of full COVID, because, it was the year after, so that would have been 22. And I left in the March. And so I carried on doing my yoga, but more, holding teaching classes, my women's circles, women's retreats. I do I hold women's day retreats, and I have done weekend retreats, but I do regular day retreats. I did some menopause work initially that's the way I thought it was going to go, more in that, I suppose, more in this still the nursey way, you know, with the whole menopause and women's health. I thought it was going to go more that way initially, or I felt that way, because I'd started already doing some like women's groups in the community, just free, but holding an evening once a month for women to come and just talk about menopause, get advice, and, you know, for me again to share that knowledge and teachings with them. And I just thought that would be something to give back to the community once a month, that women could come and share within this, you know, a private space, which I did. And that kind of built up a little bit, but then it was more, I think the pivotal moment for me was when I went on my own womb healing journey. That's when I actually then connected with my own North Star and knew
Talk to me about that, the womb healing. Just give me a thing of what does that mean when you're saying that? So,
womb healing is, well, I'm a womb massage therapist, which is a womb healing, you know, modality. There's various different ways. Yoga, you know, is womb healing. Meditation, you know, it is womb healing. You know, following your intuition is womb healing. You know, we can do practices to honour that and to nurture the healing of the womb. But the womb massage, that is a hands-on technique, and that is from my own journey. Once I just had something one day that said, I need to do womb massage, and the next thing something popped up, like it does. I don't think I even said it out loud. It popped up on Facebook, and I just knew I had to explore this, because with leaving nursing, I missed the hands-on. I missed, like, because I'm very handsy, I missed touching people and that hands-on, like, connection and that care and touch and healing. So I really wanted to do something that, you know, holding spaces, you know, my yoga, my women's circles, the retreats, they were amazing and very transformational for a lot of women. But I just needed more for me and more to offer. So the womb healing massage, it is a hands-on massage. It's based on like ancient Mayan, because it's shamanic womb massage. It's based on ancient Mayan massage techniques. So it works with the front of your body, of your womb space, and the back of your womb space, and your heart as well, the back of your body. So it works on your physical body, which I've got a good understanding of with the 30 years of being a registered nurse, but also with your energy body. And I've actually learned more about the body than doing this than I did in 30 years of nursing. And every time I look into more things, it just blows my mind of how amazing our bodies are, how complicated, but how absolutely amazing they are. And I'm literally obsessed with wombs. I could talk about wombs all day, because for women, they are our power portal. And I read something a while ago and it said women aren't a gender, they're a dimension. And if you think that is where, that's our portal, because we birth beings from one dimension through our power portal into another, into being. And that's our cauldron, it's our medicine bowl. So again, when it brings me, it ties in nicely with the yoga. Like on Sunday, the yoga practice I did, we were releasing the energy, that feminine energy within our womb space and our hips, and then doing moves where we were stirring our cauldron with our spine like it was a stick, like stirring those emotions, because that's where our pelvis is our seat of power, and the sacrum translates as sacred. So your sacrum and your sacral bones and your, like, the bottom of your spine, you know, that's based around your root chakra, which is all your roots, your sacral chakra, your pelvic bowl that holds your womb and your womb space. So that's, for women, that's where we hold our emotions, our trauma and our life experience. But it's not only ours, it's our trauma, our emotions and our life experience of our maternal lineage as well. Because women are born with all the eggs that they need for a whole lifetime already in their ovaries. We don't make new eggs. We're already born with millions of eggs in our ovaries. So if you think when my grandma was pregnant with me, when my grandma was pregnant with my mum, I was already in my mum's ovaries as an egg. So that's how the generational trauma gets, whatever my grandma was going through, you know, trauma gets absorbed in your body. So then my mum would have felt that. And then I'm already in my mum's body. So then that's passed down to me. So a lot of the trauma that we carry isn't even our own.
Ancestral. Interesting, mate. Never ever thought of it like that before.
Yeah, it's ancestral and generational. And
how many women know this? You know what I mean? Is this common knowledge? Is it?
No, it's not. And actually, I saw a little clip of something you put on before about doing more videos, and I think that was a little nudge, because every time I speak to women about this, they all say, "Oh my God, I could speak to you all day about this. It's amazing. It's blowing my mind," and it is. It's done the same with me, because it isn't something that's known. It isn't something that's even spoken about.
Yeah, the word womb, you know, in itself, I think people instantly kind of go, "You just said the word womb." I'm like, right.
And it's funny, because I was talking to a doctor a couple of weeks ago, and I said about being a womb massage therapist, and he said, "Oh, well, where'd you massage then, on the wound itself?" And he thought I said wound, because I think he must have thought. And I was like, "No, womb, man, womb." So he's just thought it was a wound. So yeah, it's not something that is, you know. But if you think, it wasn't that long ago, even around the area of menopause.
When you stand up and you do your little sort of 60-second networking thing, you say you're a womb massage therapist. What sort of reaction are you getting from like women when they're saying it?
A lot of women come up to me and say, "I need to see you."
But they won't say it there and thereabouts.
They do come up to me in the room. I did have a few after the last one, but it's hard, isn't it, in a minute? You know, what can you say in a minute?
Yeah.
It's because the list of things that... So the womb massage treats the physical body and the energy body, because they together tell a story. And what I absolutely love about it is the consultation form is 7 pages long, so it's deep because it's a deep practice. So that covers things like trauma and abuse and different things going from yourself and your maternal lineage. And then I read this information that women have shared confidentially. And it's like when I was nursing, where when a patient was admitted, we'd do an initial assessment on someone, and we'd ask them about, you know, the diet and the lifestyle, the sleep, or we'd get an overall picture of their kind of holistic health. And then from the information they gave us, we'd devise a personalised care plan, like a plan of care to treat that patient. So this is like that, really. I get all the information and I take all that and I write it all down and I pick out things that they've shared, and then from what I've picked out from this, it's the story of themselves, of the body, of their experiences, of the trauma, of the relationships, of the past. You know, the back of your body, that's your lunar body, your feminine, that's your past and your past lives. That's why it's nice to do the shamanic journeying on the back of the womb space. The front's the solar, the masculine, the heat. So a lot, and I'm noticing certain you know, same elements that are coming through, and a lot of it is the back pain and lower back pain, and you think it's coming from your back, but that's the back of your womb. It's, you know, and our hips as well. So because our hips hold our womb and our womb holds so much, our hips are physically the space that holds are suppressed and unexpressed emotions. So things that we've not shared, things that we're just stuffing down there because often it's too painful, and then we bury them. So that's where they sit in our hips. And often women will say, "Oh, and by the way, I've got tight hips as well." And you think, yeah, like, of course you have. But also the hips are, you know, they think of as above, so below. So the hips are like a bigger jaw. If you looked at the skeletal jaw and the pelvis, then that's just like a little one of the pelvis. And your womb space is energetically and physiologically linked to your throat. So often women will have like a clicky jaw on the right side, but then the right hips click as well. So when you were a fetus, your throat and your womb were together, and then as the fetus grew, they unfurled, and one went above and then one went below. So your vagina is the opening below as your mouth is the opening above, and they're connected by your spinal cord physiologically, but by like a golden thread of connection. And they say your womb has a heart and your heart has a womb. And your womb has got its own nervous system which communicates directly to your brain, and that goes through your heart. So often woundings in women's wombs show up as things that you wouldn't relate to just being in that womb space. So a wounding can be where you don't want to, you're scared of kind of stepping into a leadership role, or limiting beliefs, or you're scared of, you feel uncomfortable speaking your truth, standing up for yourself, speaking too loudly. So they're all woundings that are in your throat chakra because they're physiologically connected. And sometimes when I'm doing the massage, women say that they can feel a real dragging or an opening or burning in the throat. So it's not just, that's what amazes me, it's not just about the actual womb as a physical organ that you would think. It's how the emotions in the body, because they all have to go, energy is like emotions, isn't it? Like emotions are energy in motion. So when they're suppressed and they're not expressed and they're stuck and they're stagnant and they're trapped, and where do they go? So that's the lovely part of the massage, of that movement, and the breath work again, of helping that the movement, because it's not a massage where you would go to sleep. You work with me with your breath. And there was 2 ladies that came to me one lady came and she was just curious about what the womb massage was, and she had one, and she shared that she had asthma, which was quite severe. And our lungs are the organs that store grief and loss and sadness. And when we actually trace back, because then I get a picture then from the form. So when we first meet, before the womb massage, we have a consultation, and I say, this is what I'm reading from you. This is what your body is telling me from the information you've shared. And I share kind of what that means, like energetically, spiritually, and just to see if it makes sense to them. And sometimes they're like, yeah, and then they say other things as well, and they're like, oh my God, this will be why I feel like this, or this will be from them. So when we were doing the consultation initially, I said to her, when did your asthma start? And she said when she was 19. And she said that she was due to get married, and 2 weeks before, he dropped down dead. And when we traced that back, that was when she was 19. So that was when her asthma started. So that's how that asthma actually presented, it manifested itself in the body. And when I was doing a womb massage on the back, she said my lungs are absolutely on fire, and she's never had her inhaler since. She's never needed her inhaler since just that one massage.
Because she's held on to that since she was 19.
Yeah, and then that causes, those deep emotions. And asthma is inflammation, isn't it? And inflammation is heat, and heat is the masculine. So again, it's like, are you functioning too much in your masculine? A lot of women come to see me that work in corporate, so they're all up here. Yeah. They're all in the head, and that is the doing of the masculine. That's the logic that we said, the planning, the organising, that taking the action.
That forceful nature.
Yeah. So they're all in the head, in that masculine. And what happens is, because the feminine is the being, and the feminine is in the lower chakras, like energy centres of your root, your sacral chakra, and like your solar plexus. Because a lot of women spend so much time up here, it's like this gets forgotten about, and it's like you're abandoning yourself. It's like how it's disconnected. So again, when they come and they say, well, I'm in corporate, I'm always busy, I look after everyone else, I've got 3 dogs, 6 kids, and I never get time for myself, and then they'll say, and I have back pain, and then I have pain in my hip, but it's only my right hip. And it is the right hip, because the right is the masculine, the left is the feminine. And then when I feel then, after we sit and we kind of explore and dive into all of this, then it's lovely, because then when they actually then are on the couch, and that's when I can feel it, and I think, oh yeah, like there it is. Yeah. And you can just sometimes massage it away, and it's gone. And people say, a lady came last time who'd lost a mum in COVID, and she said, I've never been able to grieve for her because I couldn't go and say goodbye to her. And she said afterwards, and when I used a tuning fork, and when had the fork on her heart, she was crying and I was crying, and I just knew her mum was there. Her mum was there watching, saying, like, she's going to be all right, I know she is. And she said, I know my mum was here. And since then, she said, she's felt a mum with her every day, and she felt now that she can actually grieve for a mum that she could never do in 5 years. She's held on to that.
Beautiful, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's just, and like you said before with your shamanic experience, it was like 2 and 3 hours. It is a 2-hour
It's
experience.
Deep, it's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah, you know, because sometimes women
Journey,
say, can I book in? And I say, well, you know,
prepare yourself.
Yeah, and I need to, there's things we need to, you know, kind of look into first, explore first. And it's 2 hours, but that lady was 3. And my mum keeps saying to me, you need to work on your timings, you know.
It's, you know what, I was thinking, it's just like, it's healing is intuitive, and you cannot go into the logical mind. That person needed 3 hours, and you knew that, and you give them that space to do it.
Yeah.
You could potentially put a price on that, knowing it, but it's like, people like yourself are so intuitive.
Yeah.
You're just going from there to there to there, and there's no time limit on that, is there?
No. And because you never know, you know, when I do this plan, I think, right, okay, so your root chakra's blocked, which is the norm.
Yeah.
Which then means that, so when women come with anxiety and depression, you know, it's you know, if your root isn't stable, you know, like a house, if your roots aren't stable and firm, then the house will be shaky, and that's what anxiety is.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're not rooted in your body, then you can't rise in it. So being rooted in yourself and that safety and security, if you don't feel safe in your own body, then you'll never be able to be at home in it, and you'll never be able to heal in it. You know, you can't heal with a dysregulated nervous system. And that's what happens when your root isn't secure and it's not safe. And again, you know, we live externally in a world that isn't safe.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I don't have a TV purposely. And things like, you know, when we're talking about trauma before being generational, it's also collective trauma that we absorb. You know, we all absorb it, but, you know, that's where women hold it and absorb it. And, you know, a lot of people sit there and they watch the news, and they watch things that are traumatic to watch. And our subconscious does not know that that's not happening in our living room. Because as humans, when we're in our tribes and communities, we weren't exposed to the traumas that were happening all over the world. Our bodies aren't made to hold that. So again, it's the collective trauma that people are walking around with. So that in itself causes that, ooh, you know, this, you're not connected to Mother Earth because the Earth itself doesn't feel safe. You know, and that's where you're going out and you're feeling anxious, and, you know, anxiety is, who doesn't feel anxiety these days? You know, and that can be within that collective and of what we're absorbing, you know, out there. So one advice is turn your telly off. You know, turn your telly off, meditate instead. You know, do something for you, journey into yourself, you know, rather than watching traumatic events that are happening all over the world that really, you know, we're not supposed to be open to that. You know, so the body does tell, you know, a story which is absolutely fascinating. And another lady messaged me just out of the blue and said, you don't know anyone that can help with asthma, do you? And that was after the first one. And I said, actually, I might be able to help with that. And she came, and she was only in her 30s, and she couldn't walk to the end of the road without her inhaler. And the same again, she'd had a sudden loss. We traced it back to when her asthma started. And she's never needed her inhaler again either. And she's like, I just can't believe it. It's like a miracle. So this is where it blows my mind, because never when I started this journey of womb healing and massage would I have thought it was so expansive to things like asthma and, you know, other physiological things and conditions that we hold in the body. But it's just amazing.
Yeah, you definitely need more videos about it and break the stigma around womb massage.
Yeah.
People are just instantly switching off to it, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, another one for you is, like, I feel like the sacredness of the cycle and periods has kind of been, you know, back in the day, the witches and the red tents, you know, something me and you talked about. There was a beautiful sacredness about it where it was protected, and, do you know what I mean? That's not here anymore, is it?
No.
Mary Magdalene, all that, the beautifulness.
Yeah, and that's why she is always depicted wearing red, isn't she?
Yeah.
You know, which is, again, that's, you know, of symbolic of, you know, the feminine and the, you know, that menstrual blood, because that was seen as sacred and powerful. And there were ceremonies, you know, women in tribes and cultures and communities, they used to hold ceremonies to honour, you know, young girls' first bleed. And what do we do now? We just
cover it up, plug it up.
Exactly. We plug it up, but you know the actual twisted thing as well. So what we do now is we encourage women, just put a tampon up there, because if you put a tampon in, it stops that flow coming out. So really you can forget it's there, because let's be honest,
you don't want to
it's an inconvenience to most women, because most women are, like we said before, they're busy working, they're in that masculine of doing, they're in the 24-hour masculine cycle, which is what we've been conditioned to be, mini men, in a 24-hour. And it reminds me of that, you know, the Peter Kay, when he used to say about the hobnob, like, dunk it again. And it's like, women are like, getting up, do it again, do it again, do it again. And I think, no, women aren't a hobnob. We don't want to be hobnobs. Like, women should be something like a Viennese, like, swirl or something, where it's got the cycle in it, and, you know, it's soft and it's to be enjoyed and devoured, not right, come on. Because women's bodies work in the 28 day cycle, which, like you said, is why women used to go to moon lodges, because the 28 days is the same cycle of the moon. So, you know, the lunar cycle is 28 days, and women's menstrual cycle used to sync with that. You know, but now, because we're so out of connection to our own rhythms and our own internal seasons, because within that 28-day cycle as a woman, you have an autumn, a winter, a spring and a summer. And within those seasons, you need to nurture yourself differently, because you show up for yourself differently. You know, but women today, you know, they could be on the period, they could be ovulating, they could be premenstrual, and you have to show up the same, because that's just how life is. You go to work, you just get on with it, you show up, you power through. Whereas really, when you're bleeding, that's the winter. You know, that's when you want to go inside. That's the dark moon, when you want to go internally and nurture yourself and be soft and be kind to yourself. Have fluffy blankets. And
I see so many people not being kind to themselves, you know.
And
they can't allow themselves to be kind to themselves.
But again, that is, in women in particular, that is a witch wound. So, and that comes from when women were persecuted, tortured and burned as witches. And that came when the patriarchy came in, when the church started, because the women were the healers, the herbalists and the midwives in communities. And they used that, what you said before, that intuition, that intuitive knowledge of healing and that inner knowing. And the church was threatened by that. It was a threat. So they didn't want to acknowledge that or to use it, so they decided to wipe it out and decide that women were witches. They had these powers that were witchy powers, so they'd eradicate it, and that's why they burnt women as witches. And they weren't witches, they were women, because women are intuitive and they do have a knowing and they do have, you know, the power. And we are different to men. Not saying men don't have these qualities, but we're made differently for a reason, you know. But now we've been forced into being mini men. And I see, you know, like you see men, don't you, on social media, and they're like, don't know what the fuck to do with themselves. You know, women are trying to be mini men. Men don't know, well, should I be more of a man, or should I be more of a woman, or should I be both? Or I feel sorry for men, because it's all got a little bit messed up. It's all got a bit messy, you know, whereas, you know, women are the receivers. They're the, you know, back in the day, the men would be the action takers, the doers. They'd go out of the cave and they'd come back. The women would be at home. They'd be holding that nest, like that womb space. They would be the oracles. You know, the men would come to them for that intuition, for that oracle, that knowledge, that intuitive knowing. And they'd go out and take the action. Whereas women now, they're trying to work it all out on their own. They're doing that. But because they're so much in that action masculine, that is that when it comes again, that disconnection from that intuitive knowledge, because they're not connected to it. And they're not, like you said, we don't talk about menstruation, we don't talk about menopause. Well, we do more now, but we never have done. Even pregnancy, you know, so womb, that's a whole new one. But, you know, when I was nursing and working around the menopause, I realised that we don't understand the menopause because we've never been taught to understand menstruation. And that's the start of the journey, isn't it? You know, of understanding how our bodies work as women. So we get to menopause and we're like, what the actual fuck is going on? And women used to say to me, I feel lost. I'm not who I was, but I don't know who I am. And you know, the highest rate of divorce and suicide in women is in the menopausal years, because everything changes.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to keep everything as it was. But we've never been taught that it's not meant to stay as it was. You know, because that's going into, you know, there's the 3 cycles of women's life, the maiden, the mother and the crone. So menopause is going into the last phase of a woman's life. And menopause is actually, that is a big shamanic rebirth. But because it's been seen as a negative thing and associated with old age, you know, the word crone, if you look up the word crone in the dictionary, it says...
Yeah, it's got a negative connotation to it, yeah.
It says an ugly old woman.
Yeah.
You know, whereas it can translate to crown, you know, and that's your crone energy is the energy, that's the wild woman energy. And the wild woman energy is the energy that is with your premenstrual phase. So in your premenstrual phase, when you're like, you know, you're getting that kind of more of a heat and that don't give it, you know, like you'll take anyone on.
Yeah.
I used to think the world hates me and I hate the world. I'd be like, F you world. Like, you know, and I'd take anyone on because I was ready for it, because your hormones are all like really at the peak and you don't care, you know, you're going a rampage. But again, that's always been seen as negative. Oh, she's hormonal. You know, she's gone off the rails, she's lost the plot. And you know, the word for hysterical comes from hysterica, which is the Greek word for womb. So being hysterical and all hormonal is associated to women, and that was linked to, oh, she's all hysterical. And you know, women were, you know, even in my mum's generation, women were put in mental institutions for postnatal depression. Because they were hormonal and because they'd gone, you could be admitted for hysteria, you know, to do with having after you've had a baby, which now is postnatal depression. So the menopausal phase is the crone postmenopausal. Well, you're postmenopausal forever, and you know you're only menopausal for 1 day.
Really?
Yeah. You're only menopausal. You're premenopausal. Averagely from the age of 45, they say, is average. But really, your hormones start changing from the age of 35, but you only start feeling the effects of those changes at 45. So if you think for 10 years, there's been a lot of changes going on. And again, because women are so busy, and they're busy caring and nurturing for everyone else, that they don't notice the changes because they don't have that time to listen to the whispers. And you know the saying, if you don't listen to the whispers, if you don't listen to your body when she whispers, you'll be forced to hear her when she screams. And if you don't listen to the whispers, then you get to 45 and it's like, what the hell is going on?
Shit.
You feel different, you don't know why you feel different, and it's almost like it just landed, but it's been creeping up for 10 years, but we've all been too busy to notice. And then the day that you've not had a period for a year, that day you're menopausal, and the next day you're postmenopausal. So you're postmenopausal for the rest of your life, although women think they're menopausal for like 10, 20 years, but you're only actually menopausal for 1 day. And then you're postmenopausal, which is your crone phase. And that's your phase where is your wild woman phase. And, you know, that's where, again, it's not spoken about, so it's still seen as a negative. You know, women focus on, you know, and the clinical symptoms, you know, they can be hard, but, you know, they can be managed as well. But it's your whole, it's a complete rebirth of looking at who you are, how you live. Things that used to work don't work anymore. You know, women say, you know, the middle-age spread that they say that you get round your belly. And women put weight on and it goes round the belly, and they say that's because of the menopause. But it's due to your hormones, you know, your cortisol rising, because cortisol is the hormone that sits on your belly. But cortisol steals your female hormones. So when you're still going to the gym, doing things you used to do, aerobic exercises are inflammatory. So that's a stress response in your body. So your cortisol goes up. Yeah. It steals your female hormones. Your estrogen is made in your fat cells. So then because your estrogen's dropping, your body wants to keep hold of that because it's actually vital to your life force. So it keeps hold of your fat cells. So it's it's a real time of reassessment and readjustment instead of trying to keep hold of who we are, who we were, and how we used to do things.
Beautiful, Lisa. That's really cool, that, mate. I love that a lot. It's people's sort of thing. I need to get gym more, start going to the gym more and hit the gym more, and it's like you're doing more damage than good, really.
You're doing more of the same things that aren't actually working in the first place.
Yeah, your body's changed.
Yeah, and then some people just think, oh, well, fuck it now, I'm middle-aged, I'm old, I'll just like... But why not be the best version of yourself? Because if you think as well, this time now, you know, like touch wood, my parents are young and they're healthy, like my children like are grown up, you know, so now this can be our time. And when I first went to my GP, I said to her, listen, I'm not ready to shrivel up in the corner yet. So she was like, oh, you don't look like, you know. I said, let's make this time. This can be our time. We've looked after other people, and then it can be a phase where you then start looking after your parents later on as the carers and the nurturers. So this can be our time. So instead of giving in and thinking, oh, well, my hormones have abandoned me, like my waistline's abandoned me, you know, my sex drive's gone. You know, no, it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually still be, even be the best version of yourself that you've ever been. But it's just that knowing of how to do it. Because back in the day, menopause it's associated with old age because women would, you're premenopausal around about 45 when you start feeling the symptoms, and then the average age is 52. Where that day, you know, where you don't have any more periods, and then you're postmenopausal. So back in the day, women would be dead not long after that. You know, that when life expectancy was you die in your 50s. So that's why it's still associated with old age. You'd have your menopause, and women were older then, you know, because life was harder in many ways.
Yeah,
and
that she's over the hill kind of bullshit mentality comes in play, doesn't it?
But they used to say that in your 40s. Remember, 40 and over the hill. Now we're like, oh, I don't think so. You know, so now it's like, this is your time. Why not make it the best you can for you? And then obviously because things have changed, because your body changes, and then a lot of women think, well, I don't know what to do with myself. I've looked after everybody else all these years. I don't even know what I like anymore. I don't know what to wear anymore. So it is a rebirth. And the beautiful thing as well, going back to the womb healing, is that our wombs are not just a space to birth and create life for others. That's our space to create and birth the life for ourselves. So once we're done birthing babies, it's like, right, what do you want to create for you in your life and birth for yourself? Because this is where our creation is, you know, and our emotional intuition, our sensuality, and like, let's just work with it. Let's make the most of it, you know, because we now lead a third of our lives. You know, the average age of a female in the UK is 82. So if your menopause was 52, mine was young, mine was well, that's how I got into that, because I had a really early one in my early 40s. Didn't know any of this then. You know, I was one of those that thought I was going mad. And so that's 30 years. So that's too long to live not as the best version of you, when you've actually spent all your life helping other people, helping your children to be their best version, helping other people in your job and what you do. So it's a time that women, you know, should speak about more, because everything starts with a conversation. And when knowledge is shared, that means that women then can advocate for themselves. Yeah. Because women, what drives me mad, well, it doesn't just drive me mad, it really fucks me off, that women still go to the GP and the GP says, no, you can't have that. You can't have HRT. I don't believe in it. Or you can't have a bone scan because our peak bone density is when we're 30. So after the age of 30, our bone density starts going down. The minute our female hormones go down, then it speeds up that process. So osteoporosis, which they call the silent killer, is one of the long-term diseases associated with menopause. And once it gets to that stage where you broke a bone or you fractured a bone, then it's too late. And I had a phone call with a patient once, and she said to me, and you know, and you can just imagine how someone must look. And I thought she sounded like this little cute Polly Pocket. She just sounded like this little, she would have been so cute, I know she would. And I was speaking to her, and she said, oh, love, oh, there's not a bone in my body I've not broke. And she was at a stage, I think she was in her 80s, but her rib cage had collapsed onto like her organs because of osteoporosis. Because no one knew then, no one spoke about the fact that we need to maintain our bone health once our hormones start depleting, and that we can do that. And yoga is one of the best things as well for doing that, using your own body weight. You know, it keeps everything supple, and using your own body weight helps to build up your bone strength, but it also helps to build your muscles, which support your bones. You know, so that's the women now that are still here, you know, like maybe not our mums, maybe our mums, depending how old our mums are. So we're really the only generation of women now that are speaking about this and sharing it openly to then hopefully prevent further generations of women being like that. You know, because they didn't know what was happening in the body, because they used to think doctors were gods, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, and what the doctor said when, you know, he didn't have that autonomy. You know, when people tell me what the doctors have said, I say, well, what do you say about that? It's your body. You know, what do you think about it? You know, that autonomy of actually, we don't have to listen to what, you know, these professionals or medics say, because they purely work from the medical model. You know, and I always think, I wish I knew a lot of this when I was nursing, because I would have been a much better nurse, you know, being able to share this within that field.
Really powerful stuff, mate. Innit? I didn't know anything like this.
Yeah.
Just makes you think, and how, you know, when you are in the presence of a woman, how you can respect her more, and she's going through that you can just step back and step in and, you know, go through that with her as well at the same time.
And if you think, you know, it wasn't, when we talk about the collective trauma, I mean, it's still, you look at what women are, you know, women are, what's happening in the world still to women. You know, there's women that still can't, they're not allowed to read. Yeah. You know, they don't have access to education. You know, it wasn't that long ago in this country that rape wasn't even a thing in marriage. You know, because you vowed to obey your husband, and that was your duty. And that's where the saying of lie back and think of England came from. You know, and
is it really?
Yeah, and actually, because my massage it's shamanic. We work with a shamanic medicine wheel of the womb, and it has different womb gates, and it starts on the outside, but your cervix is called the Royal Road. That's at the Royal Road Inn. And you know the word yoni, have you heard of that before?
I think I have, yeah.
So yoni is a Sanskrit word for vagina, and it actually means, it means, what does it mean now? I was only saying it the other day. It means sacred passage. So if you think that yoni word is a sacred passage, the cervix is called the Royal Road in the shamanic medicine wheel of the womb. So that's that road into, you know, that portal. And the vagina actually takes at least 20 minutes to prepare itself to be penetrated. And if it's penetrated before, then the body absorbs that as trauma, as much as if you'd been raped. So those women that used to lie back and think of England and just lift the nightie up, they used to say, put my nightie down when you finished.
Jesus Christ.
Then how much, that was how much trauma, and they were, you know, that was taken from them. You know, whereas really the feminine is there to receive. And, you know, sex is that sacred energy exchange. And as women, we download all that energy and trauma from that person and all the people they've had sex with. You know, so we're downloading all of that into our womb space. So, because sex is it's one of the most high vibrational, powerful energies. You know, and that's why we need to be very mindful of how we're actually using that and where we're sharing that with as women, because we absorb all that trauma from that person. If they've not, you know, done their own work, their own healing, they kind of literally offload that onto us, and then we hold that in our womb space. And then for those women, it was a trauma of that being given without permission, you know, and being kind of done. So that collective trauma, you know, women couldn't divorce their husbands, could they? You know, until, you know, not that long ago, really, in the big scheme of things. You know, they couldn't have a job. It was only in the war, when women started going out to work to support the men because they'd gone to war, that women could start working. So this is, again, the collective trauma that we carry, because, you know, our grandparents, our parents were around at this time. You know, and, you know, we're also connected. Mother Earth is feminine. She's the sentient being with a cosmic womb. So we're all connected to her cosmic womb. And look what we're doing to the world. Look what we're doing to her at the minute. So, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot.
So what's your plan on getting this message out there? What have you got a plan, or are you just trusting that it'll happen when it happens? And what are you thinking at the minute? What's coming up for you?
Well, I've got a space in Bolton where I hold for my women massages, and then I've also got a place in Cheshire. So I've got 2 places because that's where I do my ladies empowerment circle over Cheshire. Yeah. So I thought, well, if people are coming there and they say, I'd like that, where can I book in? I can't expect them to come all the way over here. So I've got 2 spaces, and it is really just sharing this, you know, the knowledge about it, you know, for the physical, you know, for your endometriosis, your polycystic ovaries, your fibroids, because, you know, the reproductive system is the only optional system in your body. So when a woman is under physiological stress, the first thing the body does is shuts the optional system down. This is how clever your body is, because the last thing your body will do is to create life that's going to endanger your life. So if it knows your body's under stress, it's like, we need to do what we can to support this life. The last thing we need to do is to create another life within this. So it shuts that down. So if you think that's when you're under stress, so the women that I spoke about before of, you know, that are in business, that are in corporate, and they're struggling with infertility, you know, because once that system shuts down, nothing can get in. So there's your infertility challenges, but nothing can get out. So that means toxins, that means stagnant energy, emotions. So there's your fibroids, your endometriosis, your polycystic ovaries, that are all, it's that energetic build-up of things that are just, they don't know where to go because it's trapped in there. You know, so physiologically as well, you know, it can help with a lot of the physical symptoms. It can help to heal like the energies of past lovers, you know, when you're still holding all of those. And you know, a lot of relationships don't end well, you know, so their energies that you're keeping hold of won't be, you know, a lot of the time they're not happy ones. They can be traumatic. So again, you're holding all of that in this space. So it's physiological benefits from it, and the energetical of releasing. You know, if you've got too much heat in your body, too much of the masculine, then your water, your feminine flow isn't working. And sometimes on the left side, you can feel that blockage, you know, where it's just not flowing like it should. So it can't flow around, you know, the water flows around obstacles, you know, and finds a way. But and that's the cooling, but that's when people get stuck, you know. And there was a lady that came last time, and she shared on a form that she felt lost. And when I was massaging her, and we do a little massage that's on your North Star, which is just under your sternum, and when I lifted her top up a little bit more, she had a scar about that big right over there. And I said, "What's that scar from?" Because it wasn't on a form. And she said, "Oh, I had my gallbladder out." So I said, "That's really high for that." And she said, "That's exactly what the doctor said." He asked me what it was and said, "That's really high for that." And I said to her, "But that's right across. You've had your North Star cut open. Like, that's why you're feeling lost. It's no wonder you're feeling lost." You know, so that's again how your body tells that story. So then there's a technique that guides you back down. You know, we evoke the elemental alchemy of the north, east, south and west in the 4 corners of your body, which then calls in the elements of the earth, air, fire and water into balance. Because if you're not grounded into your body, then, you know, the earth element, you know, it's not, you need to call in more of the earth element, you know, so it's
powerful,
all,
mate, really powerful,
it is powerful
stuff.
So, and I'm just, at the minute, it's still, because it's still quite new out there, but the magic of it is, for me as well, is that there's nobody else that does this. There's only another couple of women that I know that do the women massage anyway, but no one does it by combining and blending kind of the knowledge that I have from the 30 years of a registered nurse, of knowing of the physical body. I've got Reiki level 2, my yoga, which works obviously, as you know, with the body, but the breath is pure healing in itself.
Pure healing.
Of knowing how, that's your life force energy, isn't it? of knowing how to work and guide that in the body. So combining everything, it is a real bespoke offering, and nobody gets the same massage because I take what you give me, create that for you, and that does include the oils, crystals, different instruments, tuning forks, and it is and people have said that it's not just a massage, it's like a ceremony, and it is a ceremonial experience.
I don't think the word massage is right. It's probably
No.
like a womb ceremony, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Healing ceremony.
I think it's probably undervaluing it a little bit, really.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think massage is a part of it.
Yeah.
But there's the overarching thing of what it is more of a sort of a womb healing ceremony.
Yeah, you're right there.
It sounds amazing, mate. Honestly, it really, really sounds amazing. From a holistical energy, working with the physical body, the energy body, it's like beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So much healing. And there needs to be a lot of healing done.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's looking at the sort of womb and the trauma attached to that and the suppression and all from that root. Beautiful.
Yeah. And it is, and women have just been taught to get on with things.
Yeah.
That's what they did. I nearly died when I gave birth to my daughter. And when my umbilical cord or my placenta wasn't coming out, and they were pulling on it. And I don't know whether you've ever read that book, The Enormous Turnip. Did you not read it when you were little? It was an old ladybird book, and it was a man that went to pull, a farmer that went to pull his turnip up, and it wouldn't come up. So someone else came along and put his arms around his waist behind him, and they both tried to pull it up. Ended up there was a row of people all holding on to each other. And that was what it was like trying to get my placenta. It reminded me of that when I was there, and they were all trying. I was like, oh my God, it's like a big turnip in there. And it just wouldn't come out to the point where they were pulling that hard that my womb turned inside out, and they were pulling my womb out.
Wow.
Until the point where I said no. And I've got a really good pain threshold, and even in the labour I just kind of just went in myself. I don't want anyone to talk to me. I just want to just focus and do it myself. But at that point I said no, I can't do it anymore, because they were pulling my womb inside out. And when I've spoken to my daughter about this, and she's like, oh my God, Mum, that's when I've gone on my own womb healing journey, that's really healed our relationship as well, and brought us closer as mother and daughter. And she's like, Mum, that's massive. And I said, I know now, like it was a lot, but back then, she's 33 this year, there wasn't even a word of trauma. We didn't know what trauma was. And women did just get on with it. You had a new baby, you got stitched up or patched up, and they actually had to and when I went to theatre after, they had to call the resus team because I was hemorrhaging. And the surgeon didn't even put gloves on. He just had to go in and just pack my womb back in. And then I got an infection 2 weeks later and had to go back into hospital. Wow. But the doctor, the GP said, you're going back to hospital, but you're not taking the baby with you because you need a rest. And I said, okay. So I just left the baby, obviously with the dad at home, but, I was just there 2 weeks later, and, I had to stop breastfeeding because I'd got an infection in my womb. And it's only now that you think, and again, it's that when you said before about people being kind to themselves, now I think, gosh, poor me, poor you, and you see yourself, kind of externally, and you think, that was a lot, I was only 23, and, at the time it was a lot, but we just did it because I had a baby to see to. I had to go home, get on with it, because that's what women did. Yeah. So it is a lot, but we've never been, until now, we are becoming more aware of, ourselves, and how, what our connection is and with our bodies, and, that being that we are. And, the womb being that feminine connection to Mother Earth, this is what is happening now collectively, that's why the feminine's rising. That's why I said women are coming out of the woodwork. When's your next circle? And it's funny because some women say it's like cheap therapy. And some of them, because I always have roses and they take a rose home, and the husband say, are you going to your witchy thing tonight? One of them says, you're going to your lesbian group. I don't care what they say it is, as long as you come and you find value. And if you hear that call, come. And if you don't, and some women say, I wanted to come but I'm busy. Well, you're not meant to be here this time. Because everyone in that circle is meant to be there for each other. And that's why, like you said before, women used to gather in communities, in circle, to connect with each other and to share all of this knowledge and wisdom to the younger generations. But that it's got lost. It didn't get lost, it got severed.
Yeah.
By the patriarchy, and men have been screwed over by that. It's not, we're not anti-men. I love men. It's men have been screwed by that as well, because we're back in that thing of like, well, what do men do now? And, it's a confusing time, and that's done purposely, isn't it? Because a confused mind is an easily what's the word?
Controlled. Yeah, fear.
Yeah, confused mind. So that's why. But that thing we spoke about before, the divine, God, the universe, all what's going on now is competing against that. And no man, no agenda will ever win against that, will they? They'll never win against that higher force, that divine force. Nope. So that's why now we're seeing, and all that's going on astrologically and with the planets, things are being purged. Things that have been hidden, are coming out now to be seen and to be uncovered and to be cleansed. That's why women are rising, because then what we do when the divine feminine rises, we bring that in the masculine. We've got masculine and you've got feminine. We've got testosterone, you've got estrogen. We're all one. But, we do have our own, it's that divine. When the masculine and feminine rise together and come, that's divine alchemy. That's the divine union.
100%. The biggest teachers in my life are all women.
Yeah.
My biggest mentors have been women. Sages.
Yeah.
In this world.
Yeah. And that's again what the crones would have been, like the sages. Whereas now we've been conditioned to believe over the years that, you're old and you're past it. That's why, when you look at things like social media and everyone wants to stay young and, keep hold of that youth. And there's nothing wrong in wanting to stay looking good. But it's that, aging is seen as a negative, an unnatural, process, not to be, honoured and lived. It's something to be lived in, because that comes with the wisdom, and that is the wise, wild woman. And what a great combination to be wild and wise, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. If people were wanting to reach out to me and book in with you, how did they do it?
They can find me on Instagram.
What are you on Instagram again?
So it's Lisa Adams Homebody Healing.
That's a long Instagram handle.
Yeah. Facebook. Yeah.
Lisa Adams again?
Yeah, just Lisa Adams.
Website?
Yeah, that's again Lisa Adams Homebody Healing. Yeah, I think it is. But it's all still quite new, like you say. And these, there's more conversations around all this, but there's still, women still whisper when they start telling me about things.
Don't whisper.
And because they know that I've been a nurse, it's nice because women, I think they feel safe to share, things that are going on for them, but they'll whisper, what's going on, and then they say, I shouldn't be talking to you about, they start talking about the vaginas, and I'm like, no, tell me about your vagina, I want to know, talk to me, that's what we should be talking about. Because otherwise when women do suffer in silence. That's why there's a high rate of divorce, because the changes that can happen there, and then that affects your relationship, and then you get divorced. And some women have said to me, do you know, I'm so sad now because I shouldn't have got divorced. And if I'd have known what to do with my menopause, it wouldn't have ended that way. Which is really sad. And that's because we don't speak about it. And I started the local groups initially because I spoke to so many women, just happened to come up in conversation, and they all said, oh my God, I thought it was me. I thought I was going mad. And I thought, how many women are out there on their own thinking they're going mad? So let's all go mad together. Let's all come together. And everything starts with a conversation, doesn't it? So let's talk more about, bleeds, about menopause, about womb and health and what we're carrying, and not just get on with it. Like we used to do, because we don't have to.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate you, mate. Love this conversation. Really, really powerful. Everybody get in touch with Lisa. Lisa Adams, Homebody Healing. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.